Awesome. Awesome. Well, again, thank you for joining us, everyone. Our guest speaker today is someone that we're familiar with. I think you've spoken to us at least once before, maybe twice in the past few years. So just to introduce everyone, Deacon Chris Roberts from Martin Saints Classical High School, which is now in Norristown. Is that right?
We're in East Norriton, which is kind of between Plymouth
East
Meeting and
Norriton.
Norristown. Yeah.
There you go. So he'll be giving us some updates on the school and what's been going on with the campus. But more importantly, we'll touch on some things as it relates to Catholic classical education. Martin Saints is, I believe, it's the only, other than the Regina network, uh, with those two schools being the only classical Catholic schools in the Archdiocese. I moved up to Massachusetts about a year ago. There's a Chesterton Academy that just opened outside of Framingham, Mass. That's for, I think, K through 8 as well. So Deacon, take it away. 15, 20-ish minutes or so, Q&A, you know the deal. So I'll let you take the floor. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sarah, for having me here. Sarah has a special place in my heart. I think the last time I spoke to Sarah, it was 2019 or 2018. I think Martin Saints was just a year or two old. You guys were one of the first organizations in the Archdiocese to welcome us and to support us. And whenever I'm out and about in town and I run into Lou or Jorge or Pat, my heart softens. I relax a little bit because I know I'm meeting a friend. And so thank you guys. We are so grateful for the November 6th newly ordained luncheon. I like to think Martin Saints punches a little above its weight. We're always able to get 8, 10, 12 boys that want to come. And it's an important event. It really lodges in their imagination and gives us kind of a grand occasion around which to talk about vocations. It's a really important event. Michael, if you send me an email tickler, we will gratefully and gladly buy an ad in that book. So I want to respect your time and speak succinctly, but I'm going to start with the kind of the story of Martin Saints Classical High School from the beginning for those who are new to it. And I will end talking about some of the national networks and national trends and be open to go in whichever direction you want in the Q&A. In 2017, along with my co-founder, Adam Dickerson, we opened up a new little high school. And we're proud of that. It's an era when Catholic schools are closing and struggling with enrollment, and we decided to open something. Adam is the headmaster. I'm the board president. Let's clarify the name. Let me tell you, the name is a bit of a mouthful. Martin Saints Classical High School. So Saint Thérèse of Lisieux, the little flower, she was born, her birth name in American English was Teresa Martin. Martin is her family name. And, around about 2015, 2016, World Meeting of Families time, her parents, Louis and Zélie, were also canonized. So we are named for the whole Martin family of saints. The little flower and her parents. There's a sister who's a blessed, she's on the way. And we're really, we're trying to plant a flag and declare ourselves in alliance with parents who are the first and primary educators of their children. We're trying to say that, most of us, we come to holiness, we learn about holiness in and through the family. We're trying to be an ally of families, supportive of families, hold ourselves accountable to the standard of this amazing family of saints. I could talk about them all day. Well, ask me about them in the Q&A. So we opened in 2017 with 11 ninth graders. And we've slowly added students in grades since then. We now have all 4 high school grades, 9 to 12. We have 66 students. We've had 5 graduating classes. So I like to say, 5 graduating classes. We're no longer a brand new baby school. We have proof of concept. We know what we're doing is bearing fruit. Our kids are out there, at all the colleges, in the world, doing good things. We were founded at Holy Martyrs Parish in Oreland, which is near Fort Washington. We outgrew the classrooms there. And so last year, about 12, 13 months ago, we moved to the old parish school at St. Titus in East Norriton. So we rent that space, and it's a fantastic campus, 12 or 13 acres of woods and playing field, 12 beautiful classrooms. We'd like to grow to about 160 students out here as fast as possible. So let me clarify, why did we start a new high school, right? I mean, there's easier things to do in life than starting a brand new school. So my partner in crime, Adam, he was a canon lawyer for the marriage tribunal downtown, and he is working with couples and families, often in their 30s, who have been Catholic educated, pre-K to BA, and they're in these just tragic family situations. They're seeking annulments, and he's wondering, how did their Catholic formation not make more of a difference? Meanwhile, I've lived in Philadelphia for 20 years. We originally came here so that I could teach moral theology at Villanova. And I used to teach a class on the theology of marriage and courtship and human sexuality. And it was a great class, a fun class. And Villanova kids, they're great, they're smart. You practically have to close campus for the Special Olympics. They all want to volunteer, good-hearted kids. But they'd get into this class on the theology of marriage, and they didn't know anything. They knew the Catholic punchlines. They knew the church was against X, Y, or Z. But you cannot live a Catholic life if all you have are the thou shalt nots. You've got to have the fire in the belly. You've got to know the reasons, the rationale, the beauty, the coherence. So anyway, there's Adam at the marriage tribunal downtown. There's me at Villanova. And both of us have this converging sense that business as usual in Catholic education is not bearing fruit like it needs to, right? You'd have to be a stone not to notice that the church is hemorrhaging young people. So we felt the need to try and get in, work with young people a little earlier. There are 4 Regina K-8 schools around, classical schools committed intentionally to orthodoxy and faith formation. But only one of them has a high school, and it's way the heck out in Berwyn, so a lot of people couldn't get out there. So we wanted to start a high school. Studies show that, honestly, a lot of the disaffiliation, a lot of the people who leave the church and become non-affiliated, that happens in high school. There's a real sense that high school is the front lines. I'm a parish deacon, and I know that if we confirm 30 kids on a spring weekend, we only have 2 or 3 who come back to church the next week. So that, working with teens, that is the front line. And, what we do is we play offense and we play defense. Defense is when we say no thank you to things in life that aren't helpful. Offense is when we run towards all that's good, true, and beautiful. And it matters to say here at that point that we are part of this network of classical high schools across the country. In 2017, we were the 8th Chesterton Academy. There's 90 Chesterton Academies around the country now. There's even one in England, Italy, Sierra Leone, and Kurdistan. So these schools are getting traction. They're starting because people are converging on this sense of, hey, whatever we've been doing, business as usual, is not working. What can we do? What we can do. And I'm going to talk about the curriculum. The curriculum is the classical curriculum, great books. That means Plato and Aristotle, Dante and Shakespeare, Augustine and Aquinas. The classic Western canon. And that's important. It's the heart of the matter because it puts you in the zone for having the right conversations with the students, right? The kids are weary of nihilism. The kids are weary of being commodified and turned into data. They're weary of being online zombies. They want substance. And so when you read the good books, books where the truth is out there, it's objective, it can be discovered, books where beauty is not just in the eye of the beholder, but grace and elegance and form and proportion and harmony are real, and goodness, a life of virtue is a good way to live. So the books put you in the zone for talking about the true, the good, and the beautiful. The books put you in the zone to have important conversations where you can answer their questions. But beyond the curriculum, which is the center, but beyond the curriculum, you also have to create, in a successful Catholic school, you have to create a credible, attractive Catholic culture. Guys, I would have thought that your mainstream Catholic high school has maybe 25% practicing, believing Catholics on the faculty. And you can't create a Catholic culture with 25% believers. The whole faculty has to be on board. One of the moments that galvanized me to get involved in this was I was having coffee with a parishioner, and his son that year had been valedictorian at one of our flagship archdiocesan high schools, and a smart kid who got really interested in questions of religion and science. And to make a long story short, he basically, I'm condensing a few conversations, but he had gone to his biology teacher and he had said, "Sir, can a Catholic believe in evolution? How does it all fit together?" And the biology teacher had shrugged his shoulders and said, "Hey, sorry kid, I just teach science. That's above my pay grade." And he'd gone to his theology teacher and asked a similar question and got a squishy non-answer answer. And we lost that young man. I mean, that young man graduated from a Catholic high school thinking that the faith was stupid and had nothing to say to him. So what we've got to do is we've got to create an atmosphere with smart faculty who are all on board for the faith, who believe in it. And the kids have to live in this atmosphere where adults that they respect are making decisions about life, reflecting on life from the perspective of faith. And we do things in addition to the books that give space for conversation and relationship. So on my mind right now, we start the school year every year with a camping trip. We're just 1 week back from that. We take the whole school camping for a week in the Poconos. And the idea is we unplug, we leave the screens behind. We encounter God in nature. And those two things, unplugging and encountering the sacred in nature, they set us up for the whole year. They set the tone for the school because the school is deliberately low tech. No Chromebooks, no smartphones in school. Kids pay attention when they're working with paper and pencil. And also, you can say to the kids, "Hey, you encountered something sacred out in the woods, on the river, when the bald eagle flew overhead and the stars came out at night. And your Creator, He loves you, and He reveals Himself through creation. And if you will grant that premise, well, you can talk about the sacraments and how God speaks through bread and wine and oil and water. And you can talk about being created male and female, and God made you that way for a reason." And so the camping trip, establishes that this is a school where the teachers love the kids, where they spend time with the kids, where we're not dependent on technology, where we talk about the sacraments and the meaning of creation. And the whole school year kind of unfolds in that vein. Once a month, we have what we call Frassati Friday. We've been into Frassati from the beginning, that he was canonized last 2 weeks ago. That's awesome. Frassati, you might know, is this young Italian saint who was an active outdoorsman, and he was a lover of the poor, corporal works of mercy, and he was a patron of the arts. So Frassati Fridays are when we say, "Hey, it's a big, beautiful world out there. Let's go fall in love with it." And once a month, we go camping or canoeing, or we go to the homeless ministry, the homeless shelter, the pregnancy crisis center, and we serve. Or we go to the ballet matinee, the orchestra dress rehearsal. And the idea there is, sometimes you'll hear classical schools criticized because people think that we're quasi-Amish or we're pulling up the drawbridge away from the world, and nothing could be further from the truth. No, we're going out there helping the kids fall in love with and engage with the world. That's the Frassati Friday program. Another feature of the school, on the Fridays that we're not out and about doing those things, we have a craftsmanship program. So every student rotates through woodworking, fiber arts, which is like sewing and weaving, metalworking, cooking, this kind of working with your hands. Again, it's about, rebelling against becoming iPhone zombies. It's about being productive, making something beautiful and useful. And that's just a key feature of the curriculum, is that we are feeding the mind. The classical curriculum, the great books, they chisel your brain, they make you smarter. But there's just so much else going on in school. And then finally, and most importantly, also another curricular feature, every single day, the whole school gathers for some act of worship. Tuesdays and Thursdays is Mass. Monday is typically Lectio Divina, slow, meditative, prayerful reading of Scripture in small groups. Wednesday is Liturgy of the Hours or Rosary. Friday could be, it's usually like adoration, benediction, or we have a theology Q&A box where there's a box in the hallway where any student can drop a question anytime anonymously about anything. And once a month, we just get a couple teachers up there and we just take whatever's in the box and we answer their questions. So anyway, what I'm trying to do is just paint a portrait of a community that is alive with faith, that's on fire, that thinks you can be both orthodox and joyful, that wants to be intellectually excellent, but also create all this cultural surrounding. I'll close with one last Martin Saint story, then I'll talk about some of the national stuff. I do believe that it's bearing fruit, that it's working. 5 years ago, there was a single mom, who was a refugee from Ukraine. She was of the age that she grew up under communism, no faith background, but she chose our school because she respected the curriculum. You know, we read Dostoevsky. She respected the high octane books that we read. Well, so you know, her daughter entered the school. You know, Catholicism, whatever. I'm here for the books. Well, 4 years later, this past spring, she was received into the church, and she joined our senior class on their annual pilgrimage to Rome. And now she's a freshman at Hillsdale College in Michigan. And I mean, it's just beautiful. And you know, there was another freshman who was baptized back in the spring. We had a family where dad was received into the church. Mom had been baptized as a baby, but had been away. She was confirmed. They had their marriage convalidated. 2 kids were baptized, like all this back in the spring. So there are signs of revival. I do think that when you give people the real deal, when you give people spiritual food, when you honor beauty in liturgy and truth in discussion, you get results. You know, people are tired of the nihilism. They want something better. So forgive me if I've gone on too long. I want to mention, though, in closing, that there are a couple of national organizations where you know, schools like ours find friendship and support. The Institute for Catholic Liberal Education, the ICLE. I'm drinking from their mug at the moment. The ICLE, it's about 200 K through 12 classical schools, allied schools like ours, in around 60 dioceses around the country. Just a place to go where you can meet other people who are starting schools, other people who want to be part of a Catholic educational renewal. You know, get mentoring and how to do it. They actually do work. There are some dioceses around, often some of the smaller ones, where they're trying to convert their whole educational system to classical, be more intentional about faith formation, be more intentional about Catholic culture. It's hard work because you got to have the faculty and the administrators on board. The Chesterton Network I mentioned, that's about 90 schools, all of them high schools. And you know, there's new ones like this popping up all the time. I had a phone call yesterday with a new outfit, the St. John Henry Newman Institute, that wants to provide practical mentoring to people who start schools. So these schools are happening. I think there are places there. Yeah, I think either Madison, Wisconsin, or Minneapolis, Minnesota, where they've had classical schools now for 15, 20 years, and some like ridiculous percentage, 25, 40% of their vocations, of their guys in seminary, are classical school graduates. So it does yield fruit, but we need your help. You know, Martin Saints, about half of our expenses are covered by tuition. Our annual tuition, $14,000. It's a little more than the Archdiocesan School. It's significantly less expensive than typical private school tuition. Only covers about half of our expenses. So Philadelphia can be part of this revival, be part of this movement, but we have to want it. We have to support it. October 3rd, we're having a big school dinner fundraiser. You're all invited. Happy to send out the link for that. October 8th is our next admissions open house. Happy to send out a link for that, and you can pass that along. I'm available for any questions about the local or the national. Thank you for listening. Thank you for inviting me. Happy to be here.
Okay. Yeah, there we go.
Thank you so much for a great talk, all the background as to the classical education model. Q&A, obviously, if anyone has any questions that come to mind offhand, I'll just ask a question. Are you finding that parents, now that you've been around for, what you said, 5 years, I think, this is your fifth graduating class, are the parents of high school kids, are they more aware of Martin Saints since you've been around for a while, or are they still getting the message?
Each year gets a little easier. Each year gets a little easier. It's easier to, thinking like a 13-year-old or a 14-year-old and what they want in a high school. It's a little easier to recruit when you've got 65 kids than it was when it was 11, because we have sports, we've got music, we've got theater, so each year gets a little easier. Honestly, Philadelphia is uniquely difficult for starting a new school because we've got 32 Catholic high schools in Philly. There are dioceses out west as big as ours, Albuquerque, New Mexico, as big as ours in terms of number of high schools, in terms of number of Catholics, but they only have 1 or 2 high schools. So here in Philly, and in the sort of ancient ethnic East Coast cities where we're full of 4th and 5th generation Irish, Italian, Pole, etc. It's difficult. There's a lot of, well, my uncle went to somewhere, or my aunt went to somewhere, so obviously I got to go there too. And there are some real pockets of excellence in our legacy Catholic institutions, no doubt about it. There's some good people in the trenches that I admire, but on the whole, these schools are often not what parents think they are. Some schools, it would surprise you, how overt the kind of LGBT rainbow flag stuff is in some of these schools. So it's easier to recruit now than it was 5 years ago. But I have to say, I think there is a little bit of denial in some parts of our archdiocese. There are still places where you think it was 1962 and everything is great, and it's not. And, we do need to wake up a little bit, I think, about the state of the schools and what kind of reform is necessary. I could talk more about that, but I'll probably get in trouble, but maybe that'll make it interesting.
If I may have a quick one, do you have any formal, informal connection with homeschool organizations or families?
I would say about 25% of our students came up through homeschooling. And then, maybe they get to high school age and, mom is less comfortable teaching calculus or advanced Latin, or they just want to be in a slightly bigger environment. My own family, I've had one daughter go through parish school all the way, and then 3 other daughters homeschool. My youngest, who's 10, still homeschooled. So yeah, we're in the networks and we try and be supportive. And we love working with homeschoolers because, those families are usually very on mission, very intentional, happy to, they take the education and formation of their kids very seriously, typical. So yes, always happy to work with homeschoolers.
Chris, could you talk about the rigor a bit more, the curriculum, how it differentiates from what we know, what the traditional curriculum in our archdiocesan high schools and in some of the other private Catholic schools? Can you talk about that, what they read and so forth? Do they write a lot, talk a lot, read a lot?
Yes, thank you. Yes. So yeah, classical education, it's not only a syllabus, it's a particular reading list. It's also a pedagogy. It's a way of teaching. So the 4-year curriculum is organized chronologically. You start off in the ancient world, and all the classes are integrated. So you're reading Plato in philosophy, and Homer in literature, and Euclid in math, and Thucydides in history, and there's a conversation happening there between all the subjects. The teachers are talking to each other and planning together, and the way that holds through you're moving up into the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, into the modern period by senior year. But you're always reading in this integrated way. And the way that we teach is in the humanities, it's heavily discussion based. Kids have to learn how to talk. They got to learn to, write and speak and read. And so there's a lot of, if you were to come, you're all welcome, drop me an email. I'd love to give anybody a tour. But if you were to, tour our classrooms, you'd see a lot of round tables. You'd see a lot of U-shaped chairs because it's heavy on discussion and conversation and the art of just exchanging ideas, the Platonic dialogue, the Socratic dialogue. In math and science, it's really interesting. We start in freshman year. Freshman year, we teach astronomy because astronomy is a great class for cultivating wonder. And you want to get them going, wow. And you send them out at night to sketch the moon and the moon's phases. Also, astronomy is a great one because you can replicate a lot of experiments in the history of science. And so science, and then you do chemistry and physics and biology and anatomy. Science at a classical school requires a lot of creative thinking. In a chemistry lab in a standard school, the experiments are kind of, it's like a cookbook. You follow the recipe, you know the result you're supposed to get. Maybe there's a temptation to cut a few corners. Oh, I got to do this. Where in a classical school, where you're replicating a lot of the classic experiments in the history of science, there's a lot more problem solving. It's slower, but you really, again, it chisels the mind and cultivates wonder at the same time. The other thing that is interesting here in science is that when you teach anatomy and physiology in senior year, you get to the hot button issues. We're going to talk about, all the medical, ethical, bioethical issues too.
I'd like to ask about your faculty. How do you recruit people to teach all these wonderful things that you're teaching the students?
Thank you. So, first of all, when we hire people, they tend to stay. There's very, very low turnover. And when we lose people, it's because, the young women, they get married, they have babies. Right now, the music teacher and the art teacher are engaged. So, watch this space. But, recruiting is easier than you might think because in a sane world, a lot of these people will be teaching college, but they have the wrong demographics and the wrong faith background for getting hired in a lot of these colleges. So we've got multiple PhDs on faculty. One of the math and physics teachers, he's a retired West Point colonel. We share a Latin teacher with the seminary, and then there's a whole posse of younger teachers who they're hungry for Catholic intellectual community and friendship. And so there's teaching here is a win for them too. It's like an oasis, and it's a place where they can be truly themselves and authentically Catholic in their intellectual life. So people find us. I don't know. It's word of mouth. But I encourage you. I'll put I put a link about the October 3rd in the chat. I'll put up a link to our faculty page and go take a look. It's one of the best parts of teaching here is to be in community with them. It's a good group.
Deacon, your target is 166 students. You have the staff and the capacity to handle 166 students. And what percentage of your students are Catholic now?
Okay, so we're about 75% Catholic students at the moment. That's because we have a senior class with a lot of very serious evangelicals. There was a posse of evangelical homeschoolers that discovered us a little while ago. They're great. They're great. They know their Bible. They do community really well. Those parents, they know how to run an event. And they make us better Catholics because we can't use the Catholic shorthand. We've got to explain what we believe and why. But in the lower grades, like in the freshman class, it's 19 out of 20 are Catholic. If you're going to come here, it's a pretty special family. You've got to be on mission. If we ever do get a non-Catholic applicant, I mentioned that Ukrainian family, we always say, hey, look, this is a robustly Catholic, joyfully Catholic school. So there's going to be Mass. It's going to be Rosary. It's going to be adoration. If you can joyfully participate and join in on those things, you're welcome. If those things are awkward, it's not the right place for you. So we're in the younger grades, like 90% Catholic. In the senior class, add them in, it's like 75. I'm sorry, Jorge. You had another part of your question too.
So you're talking,
right? Yeah. So we're basically ready to to have if we had 80 kids apply tomorrow, we could handle it. We have the infrastructure for the big school. Here's the problem. Like right now, I might have a calculus or an advanced Latin class with like 8 kids. I could take 12 more kids in that class. I could double that class. Perfectly fine to have a class with 18 or 20 kids. So the infrastructure is there, whether it's 8 kids or 18. Obviously, from a financial point of view, I need to have 18. So, I like to say, hey, it took Jeff Bezos a decade before Amazon was profitable. These are the startup years, and we really do need investment from people who believe in the vision and want to see the school take root, because we've got the infrastructure to have 160 kids. We've built it. Now we need them to come.
Fill it. The Hispanic population being October Hispanic Heritage Month, and
yes,
scholarships.
So our director of admissions, she's half Mexican, very, very able to speak Spanish. We do get inquiries where you get mom and dad who speak Spanish, but the kids need to be pretty sharp with English to hack the curriculum. But we're glad to have them here. Now that we're closer to Norristown, we're having more and more of those conversations. We probably have about, of the 60 kids, I would say maybe 12 have some kind of Latino, Central American, South American background. Our soccer coach is a retired professional soccer player from Ecuador. He's Pat Stanton's son-in-law. We've got Pat Stanton's grandson here, and so our soccer team is killing it right now. Thanks to the Latino presence. I want to reach out if anybody knows anyone at St. Patrick's in Norristown and really pave the way for more Latino kids to be here.
Yeah, the late, great Father Gus, he loved St. Patrick's. He would have been a big help. He went home to the Lord last year, I believe. But that's wonderful. And those scholarships, you have the Carlos Slim Foundation or anybody that standing by to?
Your friend Carlos Slim has not yet joined our rank of supporters, but maybe if you can introduce me, I'll be glad to sing him the song.
He's very generous.
EITC, the tax program, I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that's hugely important. EITC is a tax program where anybody with an annual Pennsylvania state tax liability of $1,000 or more, you can earmark your Pennsylvania state taxes for scholarships at Catholic schools. And if you're open to considering that program, please be in touch with me, because it's a win-win. You get a 90% tax credit for everything you donate there, and the money goes directly to funding needy students. I'm putting I don't know if you see in the chat at the bottom of your Zoom screen, there might be a few red notifications. I'm putting links to some of the things I'm talking about in the chat. I'll do one for EITC.
I will call you to visit. I visited the other school, but I need to visit your new one. And finally, and I'll let anybody else before we go speak if they have any questions. What are the comments? Because you always have a vibrant group attend our newly ordained mass and luncheon. What kind of comments do you get from the students that get to see newly ordained priests, and they're real humans and their path to becoming a priest?
Well, that's exactly it. We're 15 minutes away from the seminary, and we've always had tremendous support from the vocations director. Father DeLacy, Father Friel, Father O'Brien, and now Father English. We try and have them over as often as we can, because obviously, you do want to have plenty of milestone occasions. The newly ordained lunch. We always have a big vocation panel in Catholic Schools Week. But what you really want to do is have that vocation director in the school as a regular presence, so he's familiar. I'll tell you, like two things we're going to do. Like I get a lot of religious sisters in. On Friday, we're having the Capuchin Sisters of Nazareth. They're going to visit. And so you're constantly talking about offering your life to the Lord. You're constantly talking about prayerful discernment. We make prayer and discernment a centerpiece of our college guidance program. I had a friend, a moral theologian, who used to say, the church doesn't have a vocation crisis. The church has a listening crisis, right? God is calling everybody that he needs, but we don't show up to listen. And so we're constantly talking about teaching how to pray, putting kids in situations of prayer, talking about offering your life to God, talking about listening to the call. And it is contagious. And I very easy for me to think right now is see in my mind's eye, 6, 7, 8 faces of young men who are wrestling seriously with the priesthood. They all want to have families. They all want to be dads. They're coming from good families. So it's a struggle. But they also see the life of adventure that comes from being a Catholic in this culture. And, they want to be knights. They want to be warriors, chiseled by prayer, disciplined by prayer. So I think if you pitch it to the young men as, hey, this is an adventure and God is calling you, aim for greatness, they live up to that.
That's it. Yeah. So they enjoy the luncheon when they get to meet.
Yeah, those stories that, meeting the young newly ordained, I don't know, you get a guy like Brendan Zahner, who's like, he looks like he's 20 years old, right? Like, they can see themselves in those newly ordained. It's huge to just say, look at him, there he is. Yeah.
They could heed the call or end up being deacons and have a family like you.
There's that too. Yeah. Today, I went to daily mass today, but the first reading was all about how deacons have to be dignified. St. Paul's pretty hard on us, so I don't know. It scared them all off.
Father, I'd love to jump in with two just quick questions, but I just want to affirm you. I confirm you. And so everything that I'm hearing is just, I love everything you're doing, especially creating a Catholic culture. I love how you begin the year. My question is, first is, how do you engage the parents? How do you have them support and participate in the curriculum and the vision? And also considering, I love that dialogue emphasis and considering AI's, power right now. I love the fact that you're allowing them to dialogue. And how do you do testing?
Okay, thank you. Those are two great questions, Father. On the parent issue, most of the time, it takes a pretty special parent to choose us. Most of the time, by the time the parents get to us, they're on mission. And they want to help, they want to participate, and they're grateful for the oasis. They're grateful for the lifeline. The parents who can find their way here have tried other schools and wept and despaired, and they're grateful. That said, it never ceases to amaze me how often Orthodox, on mission, lovely parents can be naive about technology. And I find that the greatest area that needs parent formation is technology, cell phone use. Nothing good ever came from leaving a teenager alone in his or her bedroom overnight with a cell phone. Thursday is going to be back to school night. I'm going to give the parents a little article that I give every year, and it's called "A Classical School Requires a Classical Home." And the opening image of the article is about a guy who's trying to lose weight. And he goes to his doctor and he says, "Doc, I'm eating the diet that you give me. I eat all those special foods, 9 to 5, 5 days a week. I am rigorous on this diet." And the doctor's like, wait, what do you mean? 9 to 5, 5 days a week, you're rigorous on the diet? And the guy's like, well, yeah, I save my binging for late at night. Doesn't count then. And the doc's like, no, that's not how it works, right? You can't send your kid to a wholesome classical environment and then, turn them over to Zuckerberg and Instagram and all that at night. A classical school needs a classical home. So partnership with parents is critical. And it's just a constant ongoing effort to build relationship through events, through conversations. I try and be pretty regular about emailing homilies, emailing little spiritual nuggets, because you gotta just keep the conversation always fresh and fertile and engaged, because parents need support. I can say more, but just real quick on the other question, the testing and the AI, we do see a little of it. We do see not as much AI as I think some of the other schools are seeing. Because the kids here, we're trying to create an atmosphere where they're motivated by love of learning, not by grades. So you're disincentivizing AI right there. Like, they want to talk in school. They want to do some writing in school. They're human, so sometimes they're tempted to take shortcuts and do a little AI on some at-home writing, but it's pretty obvious when you see it. You try and engineer questions that require using the material and reflecting on your own life. So, you're reading Plato, you're reading Augustine, and you're assigning essay questions that evoke the text but require reflecting personally. Stuff that's kind of AI proof in a way. How do we assess? I mean, it's pretty old fashioned in one way. You read books, you talk about books, you write about books. But an English teacher might assign a question. Oh, we've just read this novel. What character in the novel suffered well and beautifully? What did you learn about redemptive suffering in this novel? You try and ask questions that are thoughtful, that are going to take you into some spiritual depth. Yeah, sorry, is that what you had in mind when you asked about assessment? Yeah.
Yes, that was perfect. I think we're all aware. So you can go home and write an essay in 2 minutes, on AI. And I love the fact that you're coupling it with their experience and giving them an opportunity to discuss it in dialogue, reflecting on their own experience. So perfect. Thank you.
And faculty formation is huge. You have to invest in, faculty formation. We have monthly faculty meetings where we read together, we discuss together, we have visiting education speakers, because you got to keep the teachers sharp and on their game.
God bless you, Deacon Chris. Wonderful work you are doing. We just need to duplicate your model across the country, across the world. By the way, your connection with Villanova and Pope Leo and Villanova, you got to get a trip over there with your students. You never know what's going to happen. It's a little idea, but
you tell your friend Carlos Sims to pay for that.
Yeah. Get your passport ready. We're going to Mexico City. But no, God bless you. Great work. We had a great group here today. 16 would have been 20 with the regulars. I couldn't make it. So you draw a good crowd. We'll have to have you back.
Thank you so much. It's a real honor. I really enjoyed it. School is my passion, so I could talk about it all afternoon, but thanks for the opportunity. Thank you.
Well, Deacon, before we go, since our chaplain is not here, would you do our blessing, closing prayer?
So sorry, I was muted. Sorry. Okay. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen. Lord Jesus, we thank you for your church, your sacraments, all your saving work. We thank you for Christian friendship and fellowship, the joy of following you with these companions. Grant us wisdom and courage for living in these times. Send laborers into the vineyard. You've created us to be your people this time and place, so help us to minister faithfully and fruitfully, always docile to your Spirit. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Martin Saints, pray for us.
Beautiful. God bless.